Religion was never about saving souls. It was about owning them, about building invisible prisons so strong that no walls were needed. It wasn't about light, it was about control. It made you kneel, it made you obey, it made you fear something you could never touch, never see, never prove, yet you were told it was more real than the ground beneath your feet. And while you trembled in guilt for sins you never committed, men in robes and leaders in shadows drank wine from golden cups, feasting like kings on the backs of your submission. Look deeper. Faith has always been the most profitable business model in human history. Sell you a dream of heaven, tax you for every sin, and shame you for even daring to question the contract. No refunds, no evidence, just fear. And fear is the currency of control. Saving souls? No. It was about caging minds, about reducing human potential to obedient livestock, about convincing billions that suffering here is holy, while paradise, conveniently, was always just out of reach, dangling like a carrot on the other side of death. It didn't free humanity. It shackled it. It didn't slay demons, it created them, dressed them in holy robes, and told you to worship your captors. It taught you to hate your desires, to despise your body, to distrust your own mind, so you would never discover the true power that lies within you. And the cruelest part? They trained you to be grateful for the chains, to kiss the hand that beats you, to whisper prayers of thanks for the suffering that was designed to keep you small. Religion didn't save the world, it rewired it. It rewrote the code of humanity itself, turning warriors into beggars, kings into slaves, and free thinkers into heretics burned alive for daring to see the truth. So ask yourself, were you really born to kneel, or were you born to rise? It was never just about faith. Faith was only the mask. Beneath it, it was about power, the kind of power that doesn't need whips or chains because it makes you kneel willingly. It wasn't about saving your soul, it was about owning your body, your choices, your fear. They didn't just want you on your knees, they wanted your mind trapped there forever. The cruel genius of control has always been invisible. Not iron shackles, not locked doors, but guilt that makes you afraid to rise. Fear that whispers you'll burn if you disobey. Shame that crushes you before you even act. They chained you with stories of hellfire, blinded you with promises of salvation, and made you believe the enemy wasn't them, but yourself. They twisted fear into devotion, made doubt a crime, turned hope into a drug they could sell back to you in tiny doses. And like parasites, they fed on your desperation. The darker your despair, the tighter their grip. Every scream in that mist, every sacrifice dressed up as holy, every blind prayer whispered into emptiness. None of it was for God. It was for them, for their power, for their hunger to dominate. And here's the part that shatters everything. The prison was never built around you. No bars, no locks, no guards. The cage was in your mind. The chains were forged by your own belief. And once you surrendered to it, they didn't even need to control you anymore, because you controlled yourself. You became both prisoner and jailer. And that, brother, is the darkest form of slavery humanity has ever known. The Mist isn't just a monster movie. It's a mirror. A mirror so cruel it doesn't show you fantasy, it shows you yourself. It shows the shadows crawling inside your mind, the terror that drives sane men into savages, the fear that rots the spine of reason, and the blind faith that turns ordinary, smiling faces into bloodthirsty mobs. The Mist doesn't haunt you with claws, fangs, or tentacles, it haunts you with truth. The truth that civilization is paper thin, that morality is fragile, and that when the lights go out and the walls collapse, most people will trade logic for illusion, neighbors for enemies, and freedom for the comforting chains of a false prophet. This film doesn't ask, what's hiding in the mist? It asks, what's hiding in you? That's why the Mist isn't entertainment, it's a psychological weapon. It rips off the mask of religion. It shatters the illusion of morality. And it whispers the darkest secret of all. Humanity doesn't need demons to descend into chaos. Faith, fear, and desperation are enough. And when you see that truth, the real horror begins. Not on the screen, but in the mirror staring back at you. It doesn't just show fear. It shows how fear mutates people. How it seeps under the skin, crawls into their thoughts, and poisons their judgment. A calm community, once civil and rational, can rot into savages the second uncertainty creeps in. That's the genius of it. It's not the monsters outside the supermarket that are the real threat. It's the ones inside. The Mist is a mirror of humanity's darkest instinct. Where blind faith isn't a comfort, it's a loaded weapon. When people are trapped in the fog of the unknown, fear takes the driver's seat, and under fear's command, they will surrender everything. Their logic, their morals, their dignity, even their humanity. Because fear isn't just an emotion, it's a virus. It spreads faster than reason. It infects the weak-minded. And soon, a single voice, a loud voice, doesn't need proof, doesn't need truth. It only needs confidence. And with that confidence, a false prophecy becomes law. People hand over their souls not with resistance, but with relief. Because deep down, most would rather follow a lie than face the terror of the unknown. That's when belief becomes more dangerous than bullets. Bullets can kill the body, but belief, corrupted by fear, kills the mind. It kills reason. It kills truth. It kills the very ability to think. And once thinking dies, people stop being human. They become something else. Something primal. Something cruel. The mist doesn't just scare you with creatures lurking outside, it exposes the creatures lurking inside every person. It whispers the ugliest truth. Humanity is never more fragile, never more violent than when it's afraid. One woman, in nothing more than a grocery store, with nothing but a trembling voice wrapped in God's name, turned ordinary men and women into savages. Not because the devil whispered in their ears, not because hell cracked open beneath their feet, but because the fear was already rotting inside them, eating them alive. All she did was give that fear a mask called faith, and they clung to it like drowning animals. That's the terrifying truth about people. Most of them don't want freedom. Freedom is heavy, it demands thought, courage, responsibility. No, what they crave are chains. Chains that tell them what's right, what's wrong. Chains that make their fear feel holy, justified, divine. They don't seek truth, they run from it, because truth is brutal and cold. Instead, they hunger for lies. Lies that cradle them, lies that make the nightmare bearable. So they bent their knees, not in prayer to God, but in worship of fear itself. They traded reason for hysteria, morality for bloodlust, humanity for survival at any cost. They sacrificed lives, innocent lives, not to demons, not to hellfire, but to silence the terror that clawed at their own hearts. And that, brother, is the darkest revelation of all. Humanity doesn't need a devil to destroy itself. Give them fear. Give them a leader who makes their terror sound sacred, and they'll burn the world with their own hands. And when you give your fear to a leader, you're not just trusting them, you're surrendering the very engine of your existence. Fear is the most powerful currency ever created. It buys loyalty, obedience, silence, and even sacrifice. Once they own it, they don't need to chain your hands, because they've already locked your mind. They don't need to break your bones, because you'll break yourself to please them. You think you're safe under their guidance, but in reality, you've auctioned off your freedom piece by piece. Fear doesn't just guide your decisions, it rewrites them. It whispers in your ear until you can't tell the difference between your voice and theirs. It makes you a puppet, twitching and jerking on the strings of panic they pull at will. You imagine you're being led towards safety, but the truth is you're being drained, your dignity stripped, your spirit hollowed, your humanity traded for the illusion of protection. History screams the evidence. Blind faith didn't build temples of peace, it built empires of blood. It turned fathers into executioners, mothers into betrayers, children into soldiers. It convinced entire nations to kneel, to chant, to celebrate their own destruction while believing they were righteous. The greatest atrocities weren't committed by monsters, but by ordinary men who handed their fear to a master. And here's the truth no one dares to admit. The moment you surrender your fear, you don't just gamble with death, you guarantee it. If not the death of your body, then the slow, agonizing death of your soul. The chains of fear are invisible, but they are the heaviest chains ever forged. This is the brutal truth. The monsters outside aren't the ones that destroy you. It's the monsters you worship inside. The invisible gods, the false demons, the leaders who profit from your fear, they don't save you, they devour you. Outside monsters, they rip flesh. But inside monsters, they consume something far more precious. Your soul, your sanity, your will to think for yourself. They chain you with blind faith. They whisper that obedience is salvation, when in reality, every prayer, every bow, every yes, my Lord, is just the executioner's rope tightening around your neck. And here's the nightmare most people will never dare to admit. The scariest prison is not made of steel, walls, or bars. It's made of beliefs you never questioned. It's built from the scriptures you never doubted, the rituals you repeated without asking why, the prophets you followed without looking behind the mask. The deadliest monsters aren't hiding in the shadows outside your door. They're living rent-free inside your head. They feed on your fear. They fatten themselves on your guilt. They drink the poison of your blind devotion, until there's nothing left of you but a hollow vessel, a puppet that obeys, a slave who swears he is free. And the cruelest part? You don't even realize you're devoured, because you were taught to call your cage faith, your captors holy, and your execution salvation.